Welcome to Blind Level Tech. This isn't just accessible tech talk. This is technology on a whole new level. We're showing you just how possible it is to live the life you want.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blind Level Tech. I am your host, Evan Starnes, and as I am recording, it is absolutely raining like crazy out there. So if the recording just suddenly gets interrupted by a lightning strike, that'll be why. But this week, WWDC, Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, was a couple of weeks ago now, and Marty Sobo and I have been meaning to actually get on and do an episode on it because, Marty watched the conference. I kind of did the cheater thing and basically grabbed as much info I could from people that did watch the conference. But either way, we both have thoughts on some of the new things coming down the pipe from Apple that we saw at WWDC, and now that we're actually hearing in tech news and, various sources such as YouTube. So today, my guest co-host, we're joined once again by Marty Sobo. How's your afternoon? Small talk stuff, right? Boring.
Good, yeah. My afternoon is good, and it is not raining where I'm at, actually, at the moment. It's just overcasty and weird weather out. So, what are you going to do? It's the middle of June. It's supposed to be summer, and we got rain and droopy weather,
Yeah, that's the thing. You never know. But as far as WWDC, there's a lot to unpack here with accessibility and with some of the new transparent or this new liquid glass design that they're pushing. But I think first, actually, the
most important thing is we should talk about the new naming scheme, because that's important.
Yes, because when I was talking about it a few weeks ago, we did an episode. Oh gosh, the name's escaping me. But either way, I had called it iOS 19 in that episode, and that's not a thing exactly anymore, is it?
It is not.
Mm-mm.
They're actually changing all the names of the operating systems across the board to be more cohesive. So it is now going to be called, it depends on the device you're on, but for example, on the phone, it's going to be iOS 26, and then it will be that across the board. So, on the watch, it'll be 26, on phone, iPad, 26. The only thing that's a little bit different still is that on the Mac platform, it is also going to be OS 26, no I, but operating system 26, but they're also calling it Tahoe because they're still sticking to the places in California. And for those who may not know, Tahoe is a place up in the mountains, kind of up in California, above the Mammoth area. It's in the Sierra Mountains up there. So,
and I didn't know that. So whenever I hear Tahoe, I always just think of the Chevrolet Tahoe. But hey, that's good to know. I'm glad they're still sticking with the namings for that, because it would be sad to see that trend or that naming scheme be dropped for the sake of cohesiveness. But this also makes it easier now because I'm no longer you're not having to juggle, we're on, watchOS 11, but on iOS 18, but on iPadOS 18, but then on macOS, it's like everything's going to have the same numbering now. It does.
Well, since it comes out every year, kind of the reason why they're calling it 26 is because they'll announce the new phones and the operating systems in September is when they'll release them.
Right.
And so basically they're going to call it, September to September, but most of the year will be into the 26. And then so next year when WW comes out, then it will be 27. And September, again, they'll release the phones, and they're on this cycle. So they figure they're going to name it whatever the majority of the next year there is going to be in. So
yeah, and I think that's good for people, especially there are a lot of tech users that are not just general users that just want to have the latest and greatest kind of thing, and I feel like that'll please that crowd as far as, you'll feel like you've got kind of the latest software ahead of everybody else. But that was definitely a pretty big announcement. Now, accessibility wise, the first thing that comes to mind is this new Braille note-taking or Braille note-taker like functionality that they're adding into iOS. And it's, well, first of all, you've already been able to input Braille through Braille screen input, but now you're going to be able to do notes, and also you're going to be able to work with BRF files and other Braille documents as a note-taker feature. And I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have standard just Braille display, and there's NLS has the free e-readers that you can get if you're a patron of the Talking Book Libraries. This could be good for for students, for a lot of people. And I think I'm wondering how it's going to catch on, but I don't know.
Well, I think they're going to make it more cohesive across the board. That's kind of the point in it. Right. So, like, for example, there's a lot of different note takers out there, Braille note takers, and instead of it being difficult and trying to find drivers, this, that, and the other thing, or maybe is it going to be compatible, not compatible, they're trying to make it so it's as compatible as possible with as many different, devices and note takers and all of those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like a lot of this is going, is going cross-platform to the Mac. And I've also realized we're kind of bouncing back and forth between the two platforms here, but they're adding now the ability to use the web camera on your computer with the magnifier app now. And this kind of ties into that productivity aspect, because now you're going to be able to use like your OCR cameras or whatever and just simply read documents, and it'll just be functionality that's already baked into VoiceOver.
I was trying to figure out how this exactly would work, because if you think about if you have a computer that has a camera built into it, think about, either an iMac or a laptop, where's the camera? It's kind of
above
up
the screen
and facing you, so are you going to try to like pick up your laptop and point it at the desk to get a document scanned, or are you going to hold the document up to the camera? I kind of wonder how that will work.
I do too. And I'm wondering if and that's why I'm hoping it's not dependent on the iSight camera built into the computer, and it'll work with USB devices. Because if I'm able to plug in a USB capture device, I mean, there's a whole slew of things that I could see that would be beneficial for that. Being able to just OCR from the capture device, like, if I had a game console or something, or being able to plug in an external camera and then just have that facing the desk, and then anytime you put something underneath it, it'll read it or describe it. That's what I'm hoping for. That's how I'm hoping it'll work. But we're only on the first beta of iOS 26 now, and I'm hearing a lot of mixed results for VoiceOver users that are actually trying the beta, including people losing speech and...
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of bugs still to be worked out, and it's definitely not going to be what it is today when it comes out in September. So there's going to be some fixes. There's going to be some adjusting. And another thing that I am really hoping they do not do again is last year's WWDC, they announced all these things, and everyone was excited about all the new stuff they were announcing. And then September comes around and they release the new operating systems, but not with all the features that they talked about, at WWDC last year. And still, they came out with things all throughout the year, but it took them all throughout the year. And even to this day, they still haven't released a lot of the things they were talking about, from that WWDC. So they really went all out this year again, and they really talked about a lot of different things, enhancements, designs, new stuff. And I hope that they're able to actually mostly get that out. I mean, if they have to wait, one or two times, a month or two, I guess that would be all right. But I hope they actually come with what they say they're going to come with, in a timely fashion.
I do too. And one of the biggest things that I keep hearing over and over, and they're really pushing this hard, there's a bunch of thoughts on this, but the new look for iOS, or some people are calling it the new vibe. It's the liquid glass interface. And I don't know, because my thinking is, as a VoiceOver user, how is this going to affect my performance with VoiceOver? Will it even, or will my phone just work as it always had? And, there are, for low vision users out there are, already features built into iOS's accessibility settings that will let you, kind of get around some of those transparencies and the look of, if you don't like the glassy look, you could turn on something like reduce transparency or reduce motion, and, because they're making it a lot more animated and a lot more like dynamic. So as you move between apps or move things around, the interface will kind of bend and adjust itself to the new.
There's going to be a lot of transparency. So like, if you had vision, or you have enough vision to be able to see what's on the screen, a lot of what it will look like, at least out of the box anyway, is that transparency look. So for example, the menu bars up at the top, instead of just being black or black lines with text on them, you'll be able to see through them. So the wallpaper that you have would kind of come through that. Or if you have your windows, you open a window and it's going to be like translucent, and you'll be able to kind of see through it and see what's behind on your desktop. The wallpaper will come through. Now, a lot of the stuff that you can turn off so that it's easier for you if you're low vision or if you're blind. But here's the thing that I really wonder about, because this is going to be really, really new. A lot of people have been complaining over the years about the iPads being so overly powered with the hardware, but not doing anything different than our phones, or, you know what I mean? They're so overpowered for what they actually are. But this year, they're finally going to make the iPads more computer-like opposed to iPad-like, for the sake of words right now.
Yeah.
But what that means is, on the iPad, you're going to have that same translucent stuff. But the big thing, and this is where I worry about how this is going to work with VoiceOver, is you're going to be able to like open windows, resize them, move them around, do all this stuff that would be great for a sighted person. But how will that work with someone who uses VoiceOver? Because even though you'll be able to do all that, and a lot of power users like that, when it comes to using VoiceOver, you can only really concentrate on one thing at a time, because you only can do how fast VoiceOver can read you the information at a speed that you can retain it. You know what I mean? So you really would have to kind of dumb everything down in order to keep that functionality going.
Exactly. It's like what's under your VoiceOver cursor is what you're seeing in that moment and what you're working with. And it does. I have thoughts on this because the iPad has always felt kind of just like a big iPhone without an earpiece. And I think for the longest time, I've said in the past, like, some people do want like a touchscreen Mac or whatever, and they're putting the M series chips, the M1, M2, M3 in these iPads, and these are chips that you find in computers. And yes, I feel like they've been really. I don't have the only word I can think of is like neutering it, but I feel like they've really just. It hasn't lived up at all to its fullest potential. So I'm wondering too, because some iPad users that use VoiceOver, they use the keyboard to get around. I'm wondering, that's my concern, especially if you have multiple windows open on one screen, is there going to be like a command tab sort of function like there is on the Mac? Because that's fine on the Mac, and I can just stay in that application. It's not like when I, arrow too far to the left, VoiceOver isn't just going to bounce me to a different window. I'm hoping that that's what will happen on the iPad, but I'm not sure yet. And this also means that multitasking on the iPad is going to be even more possible than it was. For instance, you'll be able to, if you happen to take videos or whatever, or work with any of that stuff, I mean, you'll be able to process a video or have something processing in one window while you're working in the other one, which sounds cool on paper, but yeah, I'll believe it when I see it working with VoiceOver. But
I was kind of thinking the exact same thing, but let me come back to that. Let me go back to the actual iPad itself for just 1 second.
Right.
So to answer your question, yes, you can have a keyboard, and if you have a keyboard, it will work a lot more like a computer in some ways. You can still do Command Tab and go through all your open applications, and there's keyboard shortcuts and things like that you can do, right?
Right.
Which is great. But here's the thing. If you're going to buy an iPad and then you're going to get a Magic Keyboard and all that stuff, especially on an iPad Pro, which starts at like $1,000 now, just for the baseline iPad Pro, the 11-inch model, and then you get the keyboard on top of that, which is like another $300, the Magic Keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
You could go back and you could get an Air, which is like $500 or $600, and again, you can get the Magic Keyboard, which then puts it up at close to $1,000. Okay, so, and it still doesn't have a full operating system. It's still kind of a version of iOS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're still also restricted to only being able to download apps from the App Store and things like that, right? So, I mean, there could be some benefit to that. But iPad is also a thing that you're supposed to be able to pick up and sit on the couch, or maybe go in the backyard or whatever, and just be able to use it kind of like as a touch device, not necessarily always carrying a keyboard around with it. And even if it does have a Magic Keyboard, but at that price point, would you rather get an iPad, or would you rather get an M4 MacBook Air? Because you can get an M4 MacBook Air, for like $800 to $1,000 now.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you get the full functionality of an operating system, which is actually better for controlling both VoiceOver and controlling the operating system kind of together, as you would if you were doing JAWS or NVDA and Windows. They kind of work all together. I don't know how an iPad's going to work, because it's not quite a full-blown operating system, but it's supposed to be more than it currently is right now. So we're going to have to see how that goes. And to your point about being able to capture audio and video, this is something people have been asking for a very long time. And so this is people like podcasters and things like that, where up until now, you've only been able to capture one audio source, which means if you're in Zoom, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get anything else, right? You're in Zoom and that's it. Fortunately, Zoom can record, so you do have that option. But now you can, be in Zoom with other people, and then you can also record locally, video and audio, which is kind of game-changing, because people have been asking for this for a long, long, long time. And they're finally just putting this in now. So we'll have to see how it all works at the end of the day, but, especially with accessibility.
I suppose I could see it being useful for the student, but for like the college student or whatever. But you bring up a good point, because my thinking too, is that you buy the iPad because you want the touchscreen experience. You don't buy it because, you want to run Logic and Final Cut Pro and all that stuff all at once and be a multitasking machine. And
although you can run those apps now, they do make a touch version of
Logic,
Final Cut Pro and Logic, but you can't run them at the same time, I don't think. Maybe in this new version you can, but I'm not sure why you would want to do that.
I'm not sure either. And the other thing too is ports. And we're going to, like, if you're working with audio, the iPad, you only have one USB-C port, so you're going to have to use like a hub or something. But you get a MacBook, you at least get 2 ports. And, it may sound silly to some, but that matters quite a bit if you're dealing with having an audio interface plugged in, your MIDI controller plugged in. The other thing too with the iPad is, let's say you want to do something like run Parallels and run Windows. You can't do that on an iPad. And the Mac, you can sideload apps, and honestly, even like M3, I have an M1 MacBook Air. I'm sure you can get those now for pennies. And that thing's still going strong, and probably will for at least a couple more years. And it's kind of a matter of just cost effectiveness and really what you're after. If you really do just some like light video here and there, maybe some podcasting here and there, or if you're just writing a lot of notes or working with documents a lot or in the cloud, maybe an iPad you'll be fine. But if you're a music producer or just anything bigger than that, you'll have far more success with a Mac than an iPad for sure. And kind of circling back to more audio things, they've revised the personal voice feature. Marty, have you messed around with the personal voice feature much with iOS?
Not a huge amount, but a little tiny bit. That's where you can train it with your own voice, and then when your iPad talks, it sounds as close to you as you can possibly get it, right?
Yes. And in fact, when I had COVID, I had COVID like a couple of years, like a year and a half ago when this feature came out. And I kind of got bored and I made my own personal voice. It's stupid, called Evan with a cold, and it sounds awful. But the funny, I wanted to try it. And when they first brought that feature out, you could only use it on the phone or as effectively like as a talker device, as it would be called. But now, as of iOS 18, you're able to use personal voices with VoiceOver. So if you ever wanted your phone to sound like you when you're reading, if you're me, it's incredibly, it's weird and I can't.
Yeah,
but
I would agree with you 100%. I don't want to listen to myself.
Yeah.
I listen to myself enough podcasting already. I don't need to listen to myself anymore.
Me too. And it actually makes it hard for me to edit because I always think that's what I sound like. But the way it worked before, when that feature first came out, you had to record about 150 different sentences. And it took me a good hour and a half to record those. And then it took another like day or two with the phone plugged in for it to actually generate that personal voice. But with all this newfangled AI stuff coming down, they've basically made it so that you can record 10 sentences, maybe take you about 15 minutes, if even that. And it will be able to create somehow a more natural sounding personal voice than is already out there with the existing model that they have. And that there's a lot of thoughts I have on that, because I think it's cool for, it's not necessarily for us blind, low vision folks, but somebody that might be losing their voice permanently, or that maybe, I don't know.
Somebody who can't talk, or someone who is unable to speak for themselves, they can utilize that device and you would get a similar sounding voice to them. But here's the other thing, like people are also talking about using that with someone that may not be able to live for too much longer. Maybe it's a grandparent, or maybe it's somebody with an illness or something like that, and they're not going to be around for too much longer. But then when they actually pass away, what do you do with the device? You turn it off and then you only use it when you want to hear them? I don't know. I mean, what do you do in that? It's almost better just to make some recordings, and just save the recordings.
Right, because then you have the memory. And I don't want to touch on like personal, but it's always weirded me out to effectively preserve somebody, especially their voice, if they're no longer living, and be able to make them say whatever you want. I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me at all. But and I agree. Like personally, if I wanted to have somebody, somebody's voice and they're deceased, I'd rather have recordings of us, doing stuff, memories. But it's interesting.
Then it would actually be their voice too. It wouldn't be like a generated. It can do the best it can to try and make it be your voice.
Yeah,
it would be actually the voice of the person.
And I guess the only other thing is like just stuff that I don't even want to get into in this episode, because that's it.
Yeah, we'll have to fast forward that to another episode when we talk more about all AI stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that at some point, because it's a can of worms that it's begging to be opened, but not quite
today.
Ready. Not today.
Yeah,
definitely not. But unlike something else that we do like opening, although I didn't exactly open this one. And gosh, can I come up with better segues than that? Because it's time for the
Sandwich of the Week.
Yes.
Sandwiches.
Sandwich of the Week.
So I'll go ahead and jump in, because last week we were me and the majority of my AfterSight team were at this conference It was the IAAIS conference of the International Association of Audio Information Services. So basically, all the after sites or organizations like us around the country kind of come together and meet and share ideas and, give awards. But
it's a collaboration of audio.
It totally is. And it was in Lawrence, Kansas. And besides the fact that Lawrence, Kansas has some absolutely fantastic craft beers, man. There's a place that I ordered. I went twice because why not? And it was Free State Brewing Company. And, besides the beers and everything, they have some seriously good burgers and, just, I guess you'd say bar food, but it was better than your average bar food. But
hey, bar food can be great.
Right?
Don't discount the bar food. Some places make awesome, yummy bar food.
Right? Honestly, yes. In some places, I do just go for the bar food and the drink is the bonus. And in this case, my sandwich this week is called the Black and Blue Burger. And it's a really good hamburger with bacon crumbles, blue cheese, lettuce, onion, pickle. Pretty basic, but delicious. And the bun, they had it on a pretzel bun, and that's really what did it for me.
Sounds yummy.
Yeah, but you got a pretty good sandwich. You guys made some tri-tips, it sounds like.
Yeah, barbecue tri-tip, and then you put it in a fat hoagie roll. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was really good. Yum, yum.
What would you call it, though? Do you have a name?
A fat tri-tip sandwich.
The fat tri-tip.
Yeah, the fat tri-tip.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so as we end this episode, I'm sure there are people, especially if you are new to betas and all of this seems kind of foreign, but might be interested in beta testing. And the question I'm sure some people are wondering, when should you do beta testing and in what ways? Because the biggest thing that I personally want to emphasize, do not put, especially these new developer betas, don't do that on your primary device.
No, don't do that. I know a lot of people have been doing it and their phones are getting bricked, actually.
That's what I've heard. In fact, I've heard somebody that they had just upgraded to the first dev or developer beta of iOS 26, and VoiceOver just stopped working. Like, it didn't matter if it was on. You got no VoiceOver. And
the thing is totally bricked. From the people that I have talked to that put it on and ended up having a problem, their phone literally just was dead. It wouldn't start. It wouldn't do anything at all. It was completely just dead. So What I tell people usually, if you're interested in doing betas, first thing I would say is don't do the betas that are out right now. Wait for, what they have out now is called a developer beta. Those are people who are app developers testing everything. And then it goes out to a public beta, which is the next version, which is available for more of the masses. But I still highly recommend, if you want to do that, then you definitely should get a secondary device, or if you upgrade your device, save your old one and use that as a tester device, and don't put it on your new main phone. Or if maybe somebody has a hand-me-down that they're not using anymore, or someone in your family got a new one and it's in the drawer, don't put it on the main device. Don't do that until it actually comes out as a Gold Master in September.
Absolutely. And you don't even need you don't need the latest and greatest. I wish I had held on to my iPhone 13 Pro, because that would be, even if you go back to the iPhone, I think even the iPhone 11, you'll still be able to run at least the beta. I mean, you'll miss out on a lot of features that are meant for newer devices, but
all the AI stuff. You won't be able to do AI stuff unless you're on a 15 Pro or newer, which means if you have a 15 regular or behind that, it will not work. It's got to be a 15 Pro is the minimal forward. You can use a regular 16, but you can't do a regular 15. So
I'm hoping to, one of the things, and I haven't heard a lot about Apple Intelligence. In fact, that was one of those big things that they had really touted a ton last year, and it was like, it was going to be the next big thing to replace or to upgrade Siri, and it was, and now, it's been out, and meh. there's not really much to speak of.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Visual.
There's a lot more coming throughout the summer. So there's going to be fixes, bug fixes, updates, and adding features and changing things. So we'll see how things go. And we'll have to check in again, maybe, as we go through the summer, as we get closer to, actual release time.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll at least be able to throw out something when the first public beta comes out, or maybe after a couple, once we know all the little accessibility kerfuffles have been ironed out. But
and this is my suggestion, if you have any questions about any of the new operating systems or, anything that's coming out over the summer with a developer software and all these new fun toys, how would they get a hold of us, Evan?
Well, write to us. And yes, and in fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you have anything that you'd like us to research, or you'd like you'd like answered technically, or even if you have questions for any of our other podcast hosts out there, we always have the feedback@aftersight.org email, so you can always write to us, and we are diligently checking that. And or you can leave if you'd like your voice to be heard, and especially if you'd like us to play your message on the air. I guess it's not air, but you get what I mean. You can always
on the show
leave a voicemail at 720-712-8856. But right now, this is just the beginning with iOS 26. I guess overarching thought is cool. I'll believe it when I see it. But for now, we're just scratching the surface, and it's kind of a matter of waiting and seeing what comes out and what works and what doesn't. But
yep, it'll be fun. We'll see how the summer goes. It's always fun to play with new toys and see how they, improve, and to the point of when they finally come out. So I'm excited.
Marty, thanks for joining me guest host today. It's been a good time, and I'm glad we didn't get knocked out.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was a great time. Always love to be here.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of Blind Level Tech. I have been your host, Evan Starnes, with my guest co-host, Marty Sobo, and we'll catch you all next week.